Hey guys, welcome to this new video. Today I have two friends with me and we're gonna talk about VietQ returning to Vietnam. So I have here Nicolas and here Tracy, and both of them are Vietnamese born overseas. So one of their parents is Vietnamese and they decided to return and to relocate to Vietnam. So today I hope it's gonna inspire you guys if maybe you wanna come to Vietnam, maybe you are Vietnamese or no. And then I hope through their talk they're gonna share some personal experience, some challenges they had to face, and they're gonna digest everything for you. So I'm happy to have you guys here. Maybe you can start by introducing yourself to our audience.
So my name is Nicolas. I'm from France. My father is Vietnamese. He actually was adopted from Vietnam to live in France. And my mother is French. And I'm 28 years old.
Hi, my name is Tu AC. Both of my parents are from Vietnam. They moved to France in the 70s, just after the war. And I was born and raised in France. Then I moved to Canada when I was 19 to study English, and then I stayed for most of my life.
Okay, so can you share with us, like, why did you move to Vietnam? Was it for personal reasons? Was it for opportunities to find a job? Like, what were you looking for by moving to Vietnam?
So first I arrived 8 years ago, so in 2012, for an internship. I was studying in the business school, and my entire childhood I was just half Vietnamese, and that's how I was introducing myself. And people were seeing me, of course, a bit more tanned and a bit more looking not exactly 100% French. And I was always trying to understand that. So during my studies, there was part of the program that were allowing me to go to study abroad. So that's what I did. I went to Vietnam, and I actually didn't really leave after that because I really enjoyed the life in Vietnam. But I've never really come for traveling. I came to work or to find opportunities. Yeah.
Okay, and you too, Tracy?
I like how he described, France was... When I moved to Canada when I was 19, I didn't realize how much, I guess, racism there were in France. But when he did that move, it was like, my childhood in France was very non-French. So I was always looking for myself. Like, I had a big identity crisis. So when I came to Canada when I was 19, I suddenly became French. When I was in France, I was just Chinese. So it came naturally for me to go back to where supposedly was my roots. I remember traveling to Vietnam when I was 18, and everybody here was speaking to me in English. So I was American here in Vietnam, and I was very confused. Anyway, so I lived in 5 different countries. Vietnam is my 5th country, so it made sense for me to, after 4 different countries, to try out here Vietnam. For me, it was more it was an understanding at my age, I'm 35 now, that I could afford my best life here. So that's why I came. And obviously the culture.
Okay, so let's say now you are talking to someone who is considering moving to Asia or to Vietnam, he's Vietnamese or Vietnamese origin. What was the benefit you get by moving here? Like in terms of achievements, in terms of what did you get from kind of inside you? Was it something always beneficial? Did you have a struggle sometimes? Did you have challenges to overcome? How was it?
Okay, so this time for me coming and settling in Vietnam, it's been only 1 year. For him, it's been how many years?
8.
8 years. I think for me, it wasn't the first time that I came to Vietnam. I actually tried to settle in Vietnam in 2014, and after 10 days I ran away because I wasn't ready. So for me, I think there's a lot of benefits if you're already somewhat mature enough, or you're ready to be surrounded by the right people. Because for me, Vietnam was the immediate benefit that you can have is this fake sense of existence. You come into a bar and suddenly you exist, and everybody's looking at you, and there's this trap of like the ego, and you feel proud, you feel like someone, and it's very short-lived. and it's a trap sometimes. So for me, it's I warn the young people if they want to come here to be ready and to be mature, because if you haven't gone through your identity crisis, it can be a real trap. So that's why we're here to help and welcome those newcomers.
Actually, it's true because I arrived at the age of 20, and I was building my identity. I guess I'm still building it, but I have more experience now. And when I arrived, the first, I would say, 6 or 9 months, everything was beautiful for me because I was seeing my French mates, like all my American friends or whoever else is entirely sure of their identity when they move in Vietnam, and they just work and they identify themselves as Americans or as French. For me, it was a bit different because people, like the locals, were accepting me more. So like they were showing me more of their, more of their intimacy and or more of their cultures, because they were considering me more Vietnamese than the others, I would say. So I was tempted to be accepted, or I was tempted to feel more connected with Vietnamese culture. And so I kind of lost myself at some point. I felt like, I'm actually Vietnamese, I should be Vietnamese, or like I was questioning myself a lot like that. And only after I came back to France for finishing my studies for like a few months, I realized, because a friend of mine met me and was like, Nico, he told me like, Nico, you're not 50% French and 50% Vietnamese. I think you're more like 80% French and 20% Vietnamese. And at that time, that made me, that hurt me a bit. But at the same time, I was like, yeah, actually, I lived and I was educated and raised in France. And my father is Vietnamese, and he of course raised me with his also shared identity too. But at the end of the day, I'm reacting and I'm acting and I'm more French than inside, at least I'm more French than Vietnamese. So when I came back to Vietnam to start to build my business, when people in the street were talking to me or were addressing to me, I was truly feeling like, okay, I should introduce myself like I am French with Vietnamese origins. That makes me accepting what they offer me in a proper space, at least into my intimacy. So if I have a message for like people who actually want to come to Vietnam and live the life and things like that, they just have to stay themselves. I think that's the most important. And whatever people bring them, the pressure they bring them, whatever their family bring to them, because you should not come to Vietnam. Vietnam is a country we fled few years ago, or Vietnam has changed too much. You will not be able to catch up, or your Vietnamese level is not enough, or whatever. Like it doesn't matter. Like you are yourself arriving in Vietnam, and Vietnamese people will just agree with whatever you are, because if you truly are who you are, like at the end of the day, you will not feel guilty of anything related to your identity.
And so from someone who is having Vietnamese kind of blood a little bit, do you think they will have more opportunities and maybe more commitment to settle here, or just more engagement, right? For them it's kind of a path that they will, I mean, you guys now kind of, this is your new home. Of course you miss your family in France, but it's still like you belong more to the root of Vietnam, right?
It's for me the benefit lies in whether you already answered that question, which is which one I am. Because when you're VQ, like you're sitting in between two chairs, and for me, it's that identity crisis that I had. And like when he was talking about percentage, for me, how I dealt with it was like, I am neither Vietnamese nor French. I am one of them whenever it's most convenient for me. So when I decided to be selfish this way, it was where like Vietnam was the most beneficial for me, and when France was the most beneficial for me, when Canada was the most beneficial for me, because I was a man of many cultures, and I was just like, okay, well, when it's going to be good for me, then I'm going to be Vietnamese. When it's going to be good for me, I'm going to be French. So in the World Cup, I'm definitely French. See, it's like, and then nobody has, because people will always have something to say. People will always have a judgment or some type of fear to give you, and it's just for you to decide whenever it's best for you. So in moments here in Vietnam, I'm definitely French. In other moments, I'm definitely Canadian, and in others, I'm definitely Vietnamese. Just whenever it's convenient for me. So, and it's a choice that, you know, I can only make because I know who I am now within my years and my mistakes and all those things, and I can be selfish that way, and that's the only thing that I can say for, you know, the Vikios that are going to listen to this is there is 1 million ways to be successful and happy here in Vietnam, and there is just as many ways to get lost and you know, lose yourself. So it's very dangerous, and it's at the end of the day, I think, who you're going to surround yourself with, because, you know, a lot of people here don't have the best intention, but a lot of them have really good intention, you know.
So if you could now, with your experience and with the like 1 year and 8 years for you, Nicolas, kind of summarize the benefits and versus a little bit the downside of being VieTU in Vietnam, how it would be?
I think the benefits is exactly what Tracy described. Is more like this some sort of choice we have. Of course, it's also a disadvantage because every time you have to choose, that means you may need to make a decision, and then you need to question, and you need to bring to wait, and you also always have your ass sitting in between two chairs, so it can be uncomfortable. But at the same time, once you found the proper way to play with that, at least I would say play, use that at your advantage, then it's highly beneficial, I guess. Because I think multicultural profiles like us, especially in 2020, the time we are now, is beneficial. Every people I've met, like even yesterday, I was meeting a guy who was interested in, you know, like discovering the world, and he lost his job, and he's 100% Vietnamese, but he's like trying to practice his English and everything. Like once I'm speaking with people like that, I'm seeing that they look at us like, oh, you are lucky. But at the same time, that's something we need to learn how to use that at our advantage. Because during many years, I was not that comfortable with this double or dual identity as well. So.
I think if you come with for the Vikios that are going to come here, if you come with a listening ear and a compassionate mind, you'll find a true sense of purpose here, because you'll see family, you'll see something familiar, not maybe family if you don't have any here, but you'll see something familiar that is much different from what we've experienced outside of Vietnam, but there is definitely a sense of purpose that you can find here, something that can drive you. And for example, my brother is not here to talk about this, but my brother came back to Vietnam 20 years ago. He has now a family, 2 kids and everything, and I know a lot of stories like this of Vikio coming back to Vietnam, and without words, without, you know, interaction, just at the airport, just, you know, feeling this sense of belonging, feeling this sense of purpose within the country already, and it is something that, you know, I think most of the Vikio that are out there, if we're privileged, because we have to see what privilege that we have, we're privileged to have been born in countries that have really strong passports. So if one of the choices that they have is to go backpacking in Australia or go to Vietnam, then I'll highly recommend them to start with Vietnam. You know, because it's like, you know, the rite of passage for us as double culture is to start with the culture that we were supposedly originated from. So, you know, I made that mistake when I was 28. I went to Australia for a year because I followed that Western way of thinking. It's like, you want to be a backpacker, fucking go to Australia, you know. And and then I was like, well, there is so much more that I've learned this year here in Vietnam than my year in Australia, you know. So So, and
also it's about the expectations, because for a lot of people who haven't or like who have a Vietnamese background and who knows Vietnamese culture, like in France, or Vietnamese culture in Berlin or in Canada, I mean, it's totally different than Vietnam. Like Vietnam, the entire culture is moving differently than overseas, and so the community also is evolving differently. So most of the people I've met met who arrived and who made it to Vietnam, and they arrived with a lot of expectations and a lot of fears and things like that. I would recommend just to actually book the plane ticket and figure it out on site, because most of the cases, like the best experiences and the worst as well, but the best experiences will be on, you know, like experiencing authentic things on the day to day, meeting this banh mi lady down the street and going to this I don't know, like event, and you start to meet some other people and you were not expecting it. Most of the time, that's where you will meet the right person, and that's where Vietnam will bring something to you the best way.
And this is where I have to emphasize this
It's
point.
scary, right?
It is scary, and most of the time, in my experience of the Vikios community, I know a bunch of them from America, Canada, France, Australia too. It's the way we grew up. Didn't allow us to, for a lot of us, didn't allow us to exist. You know, it was very hard for me, in my experience, for example, to grow up in Paris, being a Vietnamese kid. I wasn't like the, if I relate to my own story, I wasn't the popular kid. Like girls in high school didn't go to me and go like, I really want to date you, you know, and it became this very passive trauma, or very active trauma, you know. Let's be real. It really became like an element in my identity. I need to prove myself. I need to get the girls and all those things. And it was just every time I would come to Vietnam, I would get trapped into this going to nightclub, going to drink, prove to people in my head that I could, like, you know, get. And it's
I can
so
do
easy.
it too.
It's so easy to get lost in this fake sense of existence. So my biggest advice for the Vikios that wanna have the most benefit of coming to Vietnam is to have a method to it, or to have the right crowd. Again, I go back. It's like, you know, like to meet people like us is
Be
very
surrounded
important.
by the right people.
Exactly. That's you know, have a purpose for you. That want to lead you to answering the right questions. Not, you know, like fulfilling that deficit of ego that we had our whole life. It's important, yes, like, you know, but to do this with understanding that we were lost kids, and we need to feed that poor little ego, but to a point where it's enough. I've seen some of my friends, they're here for 2 years and they're still, like, you know, clubbing every night, and they're, you know, and it's the same scheme, and it's and I'm like, hey, you know, go beyond that. There's much more that Vietnam can do for you, you know, and so definitely.
It goes back to the concept of like getting out of your comfort zone. It's like the first step is taking the plane ticket, and then the next step is every day trying to do something different. Every day trying to get out of your extraordinary, and also like I mean, it's so easy to you just do the same things every day back home, but also in Vietnam, and a lot of expats, a lot of Vietnamese overseas, a lot of locals, like everybody is easily getting trapped into that. And so once you book the plane ticket and you arrive, and then that's your new daily life, it's easy to do that. But I would recommend to, again, like review that and then keep going, pushing further, because even after 8 years, I keep discovering new stuff every day. And that's actually why I think it's worth to just come to Vietnam, because that's a country where you can every day have a different life.
Yeah, I mean, even as a foreigner, I mean, Vietnam, I think, is a very good place where you can easily connect to people. You have a bunch of networking events in many subjects. Can you talk about that, about what you are kind of implementing now, your daily kind of coaching and program you kind of launching?
Yeah. So what we're doing is we're a coach. We have a program called Become Extraordinary. So it's based on the notion that if you want to change your life, you have to do something extra of your ordinary. So something that you don't do usually in a positive way. So we want to, you know, show people, teach people, help people implement those extraordinary things in simple aspect of the life, or what we think is simple aspect, but like sometimes it's essential aspects. So time management, learning how to learn again, you know, finances. What else am I
Overcome your fears.
Overcome our fears.
Manage your finance.
Manage your emotions.
So the way we like to do it is because many different people will have different problems, and we are not here to target everybody at the same time. But I think it goes back to the same topics at the end. Is whenever you have a project, whenever you date someone, or whenever yourself have an identity problem, or you're looking for things, it's you have a problem. Like you need to do something for yourself. Maybe find a ways to have some sort of a method, like a method, and then a good way to implement those processes for your business or for your couple or anything like that. So we like to do some weekly meetups where every week we review what happened during the last week. We try to find the best way to make the next week more like out of your extraordinary, so extra of your ordinary, and then keep going that way, and then try to push yourself to eventually change your life in a positive way.
We try to keep that feedback loop where we review the previous week, we try to address what has been extraordinary, we learn from those mistakes that we've done or anything like this, and then we implement new things, and it's this nice little virtuous circle of...
Yeah, actually, I've been to their meetup. It's pretty good. So if you guys are in Saigon, I really invite you, if you are in this kind of subject of self-development, trying to be every day a little bit better, I invite you to come to the meetup. I will put the link and everything in the description. So yeah, if you guys are interested in that, you can follow.
We are actually always like interested not only to just talk about like these meetups or like it's any topic in life. Like I've been living in Vietnam for 8 years. Stacy just arrived, but we have thousands of experience to share, and we wish to actually listen to other people's story too, because every VietQ story is going to be different. If you start interviewing more and more people, you will obviously keep learning and hearing other stories. It's so interesting. Every time someone is getting out of their comfort zone, every time someone is trying to build a project, every time someone is getting an idea and trying to transform it into an opportunity, or getting to talk to that girl, or talking to their parents, or helping someone, or whatever. Like this is very, very interesting for us as well. So thank you for actually inviting us today.
You're welcome
to talk about that.
So yeah, I mean, it was very inspiring talk. It's good that you can also share like the personal part, because from my own, I can talk about Vietnam. Vietnam is great for opportunities, to start a new life. But of course, you guys have something special and more kind of connection with the country. So I'm happy that you could share this to our audience. So yeah, thanks guys again for watching. And
Je peux rajouter quelque chose ou no, there was one thing that I wanted to add for the VQs, because this is more of my experience as a VQ, is the some of the fear is based on our relationship to our parents and the weight of history.
I think that's a huge topic. We should talk about the parents' relationship.
We don't. It's a huge chapter, and we can definitely, if any VQ is interested in talking to how we dealt with this, it's something that we can talk on one-on-one. But for me, what I want to say right now is, we come from a very heavy history, especially in Vietnam. There is a lot of pain and a lot of trauma, especially in our parents, especially for the one that has fled the country on boats and all those things. And it's something that we have to respect and we have to acknowledge.
Yeah.
And some of the VQs that I know feel like coming back to Vietnam would be a huge betrayal to the memory of their parents, or to the pain of their parents. And I want to say that it's a hard feeling to have. It's manageable. It's not, I don't see it as a big betrayal. I see it more as, it is our duty, this generation, to come back and not take back, but to make things go forward. In this sense, is to forgive, to come back, and to see what's happening. It is the country of all Vietnamese, and there is some beautiful things that can happen if we can forgive the past. and it's not betraying it or forgetting it, or it's still there and it's important to.
I often compare this to I think Vietnam is not waiting anyway for you to come. So it's more like a train that is not stopping, and we can see it with the crisis response with the COVID-19. Like they are not waiting for anyone to make decisions, and I'm thankful for that actually, because they should not count on us or on anyone. It's their story, and the young generation in Vietnam, like they are pushing this, and they don't wait. That's good. So it's more like a train going high speed, and you, as someone who is back anywhere and who wants to jump into Vietnam, it's the only choice you have is you just jump in the train and then you find your seat. That's it. And if you don't have a ticket, or if you you just figure it out. That's it. And that's a good metaphor, because a lot of time I used to own a hostel, and a lot of people were coming on holidays, Vietnamese, speaking half Vietnamese, half English, and always relate. The only way they were addressing to people by saying con mu, because the only Vietnamese they were addressing to were their parents. So they would go down the street, or they would talk to me like if they were the kid. Meanwhile, they should not do that. But there is no And then I'm like, yeah, well, now you are in the train, so just I'm gonna be the waiter, because you meet me and I can help you. But then at the same time, you have the border control, or you have everybody that you need to deal with. And I think it's a good exercise for at least sorting the things in life, because it's either you do it now or you do it in 40 years. It's up to you. But when I talk to my father, now that I have done it, he's more eager to do it, but at the same time, I don't think he's ready, to jump in. This kind of, it's difficult for him, of course, because it was different time, and when you are older, it's even more and more difficult. So I think in 2020 we have the opportunity to review that and do it our ways differently, and the train is never going to wait anyway. And I think it's getting faster and faster. So it's up to us to just go in or, wait.
I think it's a good conclusion, Nico. You try to follow his advice, catch a train, no ticket, no seat, just try to foresee after how you can make it. Thanks guys again, and I was happy to have you here. Bye bye.